Good afternoon. This is Jason Dean, live and coming at you from Film Fanatic headquarters. And a happy New Year's to everyone. 2023. It's hard to believe. This is the first show I'm going to be doing of the new year. So I saw a movie last night and I really loved it. And as soon as I got home, I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it since I saw it. And since I got home, I just had this deep desire to do a show on this great movie that I'm going to talk about. And actually, this is going to be a little bit of a different show too, because I'm going to be doing kind of a joint show. I'm going to be doing both movies together because it makes more sense, I think. And I've never done a show really where I've done two movies in one, and it's something a little bit new, and I think it could be a cool thing to explore. The movies are both related, and they're at the same time they're not. They're kind of a first part and then a second part, but then they're not. You can see each movie on itself. They're both like standalone movies, and both movies that I'm going to talk about. It's going to be the first one's going to be Knives Out, which came out in 2019. Just an amazing mystery movie. It was directed by Rian Johnson, and the cast, just an incredible cast. That's one thing that these movies have in common is the casting is just so superb and the writing. And it was written and directed by Rian Johnson. The first movie I'm going to be talking about, Knives Out, stars Anna de Armas, Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc, who is the investigator, Chris Evans, Captain America, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Jamie Lee Curtis, who is just completely outstanding in this film, Toni Collette, amazing, Michael Shannon. The cast for this first film is such a range of different actors. Christopher Plummer, Catherine Lanford, Frank Oz, and the fabulous Don Johnson. And I saw this movie with my great friend Erin Kirkpatrick. We saw it in the theater when it came out, and she had seen it before, and she kept talking about it, and it kept coming up, but I didn't know anything about it. I've always been a huge Daniel Craig fan, and I knew that he was in this newer film, and it was coming out about the same time that he was kind of wrapping up with the whole James Bond franchise. So I was, deeply interested. I've always loved Daniel Craig as an actor. One of my favorite films that he did a long time ago was a film called Layer Cake, which is like a British kind of crime thriller film, which is such an awesome movie. And it's also, I feel like, a really underrated film. A lot of people don't talk about it. He did it pretty early in his career, and it was way before he got signed on to do the James Bond films. But fabulous movie. Probably my favorite film of his, outside of these movies and also the James Bond films. He's probably my favorite James Bond overall. I think he is just a powerhouse of an actor. He's got such incredible charisma. I think he really has an incredible range as an actor, which I sometimes think is not fully utilized in a lot of roles that he's in. I mean, he's in so many great movies, but I feel like, well, a film like Knives Out, and the second film I'm going to be talking about, which is the sequel to Knives Out, The Glass Onion, starring Daniel Craig. I feel like these films in particular really showcase his incredible range as an actor. Like as far as his dramatic range, his comedic range, his delivery, playing a pretty complicated character. Just such a great. And plus he just has such a great presence on screen. And of course from his past, especially with the James Bond films, he is a great action star also. And when I first got pulled into these movies, like I said, my great friend Aaron Kirkpatrick had seen. It's hard to believe it came out 2019 already, but I remember hearing a little bit about this movie, and she had gone to see it maybe like the opening weekend that it had come out, and then I had seen her and hung out with her, and she kept telling me about Knives Out, and she wanted to go see it, and I didn't know anything about it. I knew it was kind of a mystery movie, like a detective story basically. That's all I knew, and I knew Daniel Craig was in it. So I went to the theater with her, and we saw it, and I was totally blown away by it. It's such a well crafted. I kind of look at it as like a modern day Agatha Christie story. It's got all these great layers. It's got a nice complicated story that's not overtly too abstract. It's got all these great characters. The cast in this film is just amazing. Jamie Lee Curtis, especially Howard Johnson, just, or I should say, Don Johnson, just phenomenal. I've always been a huge Don Johnson fan ever since I was a kid from the Miami Vice days. But he has got such a range. Also, I also feel like he's an actor that's never really given uh, maybe a role per se that has shown his full range and capability. I feel like these movies, or this movie in particular, Knives Out, really showcases that. He plays a real kind of complicated character, and he shows lots of different shades in the colors that he brings to the screen, and it's just a wonderful. I feel the writing is so superb by Rian Johnson that it's just an incredible ride. I really think the best way to sum up this film, and also the new one that just came out, Glass Onion, is a real modern take of the whole like classic Agatha Christie aesthetic or story. Just a great war of words on in this film, where there's not necessarily any per se action or gunfighting, or there's no CGI. It's just such a well written story, and there's so many layers. It's got this really great element of suspense to it, and you really you take it. Ryan Johnson, what he was able to do, he really takes you on a ride, and you can't. This isn't a movie that you can really get away and run to the bathroom or go get a snack. It's you have to stay engaged, and you have to really pay attention to what's going on. And I think that is one of the biggest assets of this film is it's such a well crafted thriller. And I saw Knives Out once, and I have seen it once since then. I just recently bought it actually for my mom for Christmas. I'm looking forward to watching it again over there. She also loves that film also, but it's such a great film, and I think it's a pretty underrated film. I think all of the actors, the brilliant ensemble cast that is Knives Out, just gives they all individually give some of the best performances I think I've seen of their careers. Daniel Craig was made for a movie like this. I just think it just really showcases him as well as the other actors. Like it really shows their versatility. So last night I went to last night was New Year's Eve, of course. So I went to Portland with a few friends of mine, my really great friends, Daniel Richmond and Jillian Reed and Aaron Kirkpatrick. It was a funny set of circumstances because they had told me about this plan of going down to Portland about maybe 2 months ago, and this was all of Aaron Kirkpatrick's. This was her idea. So basically, she wanted to rent out a hotel room for a couple of days, and we would all go down as a group and just party down and kick in the New Year's there. So leading up to it, I was waiting to see. I haven't had a gig, because I play music. I attempt to have a music career, but I haven't had a gig in New Year's Eve on New Year's Eve in a couple of years, and mostly attributed to COVID and stuff. But before that, for many years in a row, I've always had a New Year's Eve gig, and it's usually for musicians. It's usually obviously a really good money gig. It's usually they're usually always very well paying, and there's a lot of other great things that come along with New Year's Eve gigs. And I had a gig last year, actually this year. Well, now it's last year, but I had a gig that was possibly going to be happening in Lubeck, which is a really far away. Is a pretty far away place from here. It's about it's close to 3 hours. And some things happened or changed, and we didn't end up doing the gig. And I was kind of relieved of not driving all the way up there and then coming back, because I've played a few gigs up there. It's a fun venue that we play up there, and we've had some good times up there. Played up there twice last year. One gig in particular, we played up there, and it was really a lot of fun. But you get home at like basically 6 o'clock in the morning, so it kind of kills your next day. But I'd still do it, and I went ahead and we did those shows, and it was still it was worth it overall. So when this trip idea came up with my friends, I was kind of waiting to see, well, maybe something will come up. Maybe, I'm going to give it a little bit of time, see if maybe a gig comes in or some other prospect. And nothing really came up. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to do this. We'll change it up. I've never been down to Portland for New Year's Eve, and I figured that'd be a lot of fun. There's a lot of, awesome restaurants. There's, there's all kinds of, places to go to see music. There's all kinds of clubs. There's bars and just a ton of different things to do. And the hotel that they got was pretty central, so I was pretty excited about that. So, but it was funny because my temperament is a little bit different than theirs. Like I like to, when there's things happening or music or some kind of cool event, I like to go out to these events, and I like to, especially when it comes to music, I like to, or I should say, I love to go out and support local artists and local bands. So my favorite thing to do is to go out and support local music, because there's so much great music in this area that we live in. So every opportunity I can, I try to go to that, especially when there's a lot of things going on, like say during the summer. But there's been a pretty good amount of things coming and going through this winter. So I was like, okay, maybe, I won't do that here, but we can do it in Portland. But my friends Dan and Jillian I love them to death, but they're very different than how I am. I'm quite a bit older than both of them, but they kind of, I don't know, it's the best way to say it without being insulting. They they kind of their habits as far as going out and socializing in environments like that, they kind of come across as like people in their 80s or 70s. They seem like they come across as like a retired couple. They're homebodies, and they don't really go out very much. They do, but it's pretty sporadic, and it's only within extreme cases, or it's within very close proximity of their place. So, but they're kind of funny that way. So we're different that way. I'm I love to have my quiet space and to be home and do all that kind of stuff and be away from people. But I also, part of me is very much the opposite. I love to be around people. I love to go to events. I like to go out to things. And so I was thinking, okay, we'll do that for New Year's Eve. And I remember messaging them about, okay, so, and I had said, yeah, I'm definitely going to come down. It's going to be a blast. And I messaged them like, hey, how about we're going to go out? We're going to go out and do some stuff. And I didn't hear anything back. So I was like, okay. And then I got down there on Saturday, yesterday, and I still hadn't heard a thing of what we were going to do, but I was, excited to see them. We hadn't really all hung out in a while. And they basically told me about an hour after I was there that, that we're going to just basically stay in the room. and drink and watch the ball drop. And I was like, part of me was like, okay, this is pretty lame. This is not what I want to do on New Year's. But then the other part of me was like, okay, I'm not going to make a thing of it, and this will be fun. And we ended up making a good time out of it, and it was a super blast, kind of evening. It was a lot of fun was had. And we didn't go out to eat. We got like chicken wings, which was good, delivered to our place that we were staying at. And it was pretty quiet, pretty mellow, but it was still really fun. But we have very, very different temperaments as far as, if it was up to me, I would have, been out and about and kind of and I was in raging mode to do that. But it didn't happen. So, but what are you going to do? It was funny. But one of the things that we did was knives. I should say the Glass Onion had just come out, and Erin had seen it, who I'd seen Knives Out with, and she brought her Roku system from her house to the hotel, so she was able to stream, have access to all her streaming shows. And as I've talked a lot before, I don't usually do the whole streaming thing, so I was like, okay, maybe we can watch Knives Out. I mean, sorry, we can watch the Glass Onion, which is the sequel to Knives Out. And she was like, yeah, we got to see it. And she had seen it. It was like basically the same situation again. She had seen it before me and said, it's really great. We should watch this. And for a bunch of strange reasons, Knives Out, our Glass Onion was not really put out in the theater. It had a real limited release, wasn't playing in Maine, but it was exclusively on Netflix, unfortunately. I didn't get a chance to see it in the theater, which would have been awesome. But after we got done partying and kicked in the new year, we decided to watch The Glass Onion, and we started it at about 1:30 in the morning. So, and it's a fairly long movie. It's like 2.5 hours, and we were up till probably about 3 or 4, and by the time I went to bed, it was like 4:35. And then we got up pretty early, checked out of the hotel, got our stuff collected, and then I went to Bull Moose afterwards, which is the Bull Moose in Portland, in South Portland, is just ridiculous. It's insane. I've only been there once before, but this place is huge. It's about 3 or 4 times the size of any other Bull Moose, and the selection is just incredible. And I went in there, and didn't have very much sleep today, but I went in there, kind of, really extra ditzy, and I was kind of overwhelmed by the choices that they had. So I ended up getting some movies, and so I'm really excited about watching at least one tonight if I can sit through it and stay awake. But it was great, and so it was a great morning, and then I was in there for a couple hours, and but kicking off the whole movie thing is we watched The Glass Onion at like 1:30 in the morning, and it was awesome. I was a little bit hesitant to start a new movie, so late at night, and plus we had been up and kind of partying, and kind of tired. But I was totally, uh, I got like a second wind when we put the movie in, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And it's a unique movie because it's a sequel, but it doesn't really have anything to really do with Knives Out. It's got the same lead by Daniel Craig, but it doesn't have any other connection. It's really its own separate story, and it's got an entirely different cast. But I was really blown away by this film. I really loved the scope of the film. It really had this. One person that I that I watch, one guy I watch on YouTube who does a lot of film reviews, had kind of described this film as being, or he kind of felt like that this film had almost a James Bond aesthetic to it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting because Knives Out is basically is pretty centralized. The whole story is centered, as far as the location is centered in this family's mansion. It's basically centered in one location, and with the feel and the way this film is shot, Glass Onion, There's more locations. There's kind of multiple locations going on, and it's shot in this kind of bigger, this and larger scale than Knives Out. It has more of a like a cinematic kind of scope. Like the, it almost feels like it was shot. I don't think it was, but it almost feels like it was shot in IMAX. Visually, it's dazzling. I mean, it's beautiful. Every frame, I was when we were watching the film, I was making comments, and I'm not one of those annoying people that talks a lot during the film, but every now and then it will like chit chat or whatever. But I was saying, plus she had seen it, but I was saying like, wow, like every frame, every shot of this movie just looks so beautiful and gorgeous, like almost like a beautiful a beautiful photo or a beautiful piece of art. I mean, on the visual, in the visual department, it was pretty spectacular. And again, the strength of this film is that I could have gone in, and I think anybody could go in to see this movie without having to have seen Knives Out. And again, this was written by Rian Johnson, and it was also directed by Rian Johnson again. And this just came out around Christmas time, and it only came out a few weeks ago. The cast is just, again, completely exceptional. Madeline Klein, again, Daniel Craig returns as the great detective. Kate Hudson is in this, and she's an actress I haven't seen in many many years. She's tremendous. Jessica Henwick is also in this. Edward Norton, who is the other kind of lead of the film, one of the main characters, if not the main character, who plays Miles Braun, is just tremendous in this film. I have not seen anything with Edward Norton in quite a few years, but one of his best roles in years, and I think one of his best roles probably of his career. Catherine Hahn is fabulous. Janelle Monet is in this. She plays Helen. Again, just an actress that I have seen in quite a few different films, and I think this probably is probably her best role. Ethan Hawke is in this film briefly, which is great. Dave Bautista is fabulous in this movie. Leslie Odom Jr., Angela Lansbury is in this briefly. Uh, and I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I love that again it was this modern day take of a very contemporary version of an Agatha Christie story, like a real murder mystery. Lots of really great suspense, lots of great twists and turns. All the characters on screen all have these interesting shades and colors. There's lots of cool character arcs. There, it has that same kind of quality and richness to it, where the dialogue is so well done that you can't really look away from this film. Like for me, both of these films, Knives Out and The Glass Onion, had me hooked into it about 15 or 20 minutes into it. Where I was just like, I loved everybody on the screen. I love the story. I love the premise. It was this very slow kind of burn of a film as far as evading that there's going to be some kind of murder and there's going to be an obvious investigation around it. But just a classic story, a classic thriller, classic murder who done it mystery kind of theater presentation, but in a very very modern contemporary light. So the writing is so incredible for both of these films. And I don't know. I have to say that like again, the strength of these films is that they're both standalone films. They're both you know so strong on their in their own terms. You could watch one without the other, but to watch them together is definitely ideal. This one is definitely the Glass Onion has a little bit more of an epic feel. It has a little bit more of a cinematic quality to it, and it really has. I don't know. I kind of feel like it has a little bit more of suspense thrown into the mix. It's a little darker at times, and it's got a little bit more humor, I think, to it. It's a great balance. But again, Knives Out is such a great film. I think they're both pretty equal as far as the tone, the characterizations. I think Rian Johnson. And the other thing, I think Rian Johnson's one of the best creative forces right now in film, and I think this. I think this kind of this franchise that he's created, I could see it go on and on. If he writes everything so as good as this, I would love to see more films using these characters and building maybe a franchise around the Knives Out story. I just think it's just that good. Just that the quality is just that good. And I think it's one of the best movies I've seen of this year. I think Knives Out for 2019 when I saw it was one of the best movies I saw that year. I definitely think it was. And I feel the same with The Glass Onion. I feel like it's, I saw it last night on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day technically, and I feel like technically it's like one of the best movies I've seen this year. Just just tremendous and so entertaining, just so entertaining on so many levels. And Ryan Johnson's been around for a few years now. He one of the first film of his, or one of the films of his that I really love is a film called Looper, which is this really killer science fiction movie that he directed that stars Bruce Willis and Gordon Levitt Hewitt. Really awesome film. I feel like it put him on the map. It was a really underrated film, but one of the best science fiction movies that's come out in the last 15 to 20 years. Super underrated, so underrated. And I just think it's you know easily one of the best sci-fi movies. The movie that he's probably most well known for was the Star Wars movie. He did The Last Jedi, which I feel is pretty good. Like, it's a movie I want to see again. I think one of the things that they did with that film, or that he did, was that he really did try to mix things up with that franchise. And I think he did. I had mixed things about that film when I saw it, but I want to see it again. I think Rian Johnson, in a lot of ways, with these, especially these three films, and especially with the Glass Onion and Knives Out, I think he's, that puts him up there as one of the best, directors around, and especially because he writes these films. This all of this material is right from his head and from his imagination. It's not based on anything else. So this is tremendous. Just he's a highly creative force in the industry. So now, after, and like I mentioned, Looper is such a great film. If you're a fan of science fiction, I definitely recommend it. It's one of the last great films that Bruce Willis has done, and in the later part of his career. And it came out, maybe, I can't remember how long ago it came out, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, but awesome movie, such a great film. And but and now, after seeing The Glass Onion, even though I know it's a completely different kind of a film, it makes me really want to see the Last Jedi again, which I'm gonna probably see that again soon. But just a force, and I think it's been announced. It was just announced that he is Ryan Johnson's going to make a third Knives Out film, which I think is awesome. So that's something to really really look forward to. Hopefully, there's not too long of a wait, and hopefully it's like right up on par with these other films, because they're just so tremendous. So I really want to take the time to say Happy New Year again to everyone on in the YouTube universe. I really love that people have been checking out this channel and supporting this whole, both of these all of these videos I've been putting out. It's been a tremendous amount of fun. So thanks again, and if you like this page, please like and subscribe to it, and we will see you next time. And have a happy New Year's Day. Peace.